Ladies and gentlemen, we want to start this program by giving honor to the Almighty. And in the tradition of WAEC, we want to recognize Imam Ibrahim Njai to give us the opening prayer this afternoon. Imam, shall we all be upstanding as we invite the Imam to give the opening prayer, please?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا وآتنا ما عهدتنا على رسولك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. اللهم بالذل قد وافيت بابك عالما أن تزلل عند بابك ينفخ وجهلت مختمدي عليك توكلا وبسطتك في سائلا أتدرخ وبحق من أحببته وبعثته وأجبت دعوة هي تشافه. اجعل لنا من كل ديه مهرجا والطف بنا يا من إليه المرجع. ثم الصلاة على النبي وآله خير الخلائق شافهم وشفه. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أخلق والهاتم لما سبح الناس الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق القدر العظيم. برحمتك اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وسلم. برحمتك لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله سيدنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. آمين يا رب العالمين. بسم الله.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you may please be seated. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology, the Chairman of Council, the Vice Chairman of Council, the Registrar to Council, the Chief Government nominees of the member countries, the guest lecturer, members of the Board of Trustees of the WAEC Endowment Fund, members of Council, former Chairman of Council here present, former Registrar to Council, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I say good afternoon. On behalf of the Chairman, the Registrar, and the entire members of staff of the West African Examinations Council, I wish to welcome you most warmly to this beautiful edifice where the 28th Distinguished Lecture of WAEC Endowment Fund Lecture is holding this beautiful afternoon. Let me thank the Almighty God because we are all here physically. For this, let us put our hands together and thank the Almighty God. This is the first time in the last 3 or so years that we are assembling in a country like this and also having the council meeting in person. Mr. Chairman, I want to note that there are some members who may not be able to join us here physically. They are also joining us on live streaming, and they are also here with us. Even they are here virtually. The WAEC Endowment Fund Lecture has provided a platform in the last 28 years for the distinguished scholars in the sub-region to present lectures on diverse topics on matters of educational interest to the member countries and to their various audiences. And through these lectures, WAEC has not only contributed to the body of knowledge, but it has also contributed in expanding the frontier of knowledge in the sub-region and indeed in the continent of Africa. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is the 28th in this session in the series of the WAEC Endowment Fund lecture. It is against this backdrop that I would like to welcome you most warmly this warm afternoon to this august occasion holding in the month of March. Once again, let's put our hands together for ourselves for being here. The Honorable Minister, the Chairman, please permit me to introduce members who are seated at this elevated part of the high table in this hall. And I would like to start from my far right here. Here we have the head of Banjul office of WAEC, Mr. Pasamba Baldi. Mr. Baldi, you're welcome. We have the Vice Chairman of Council. She will soon join us. She's around. She will step in very shortly. And when she comes in, I will introduce her to us. We have the guest speaker, Professor Herbert Harbinson. You are welcome, sir. Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology, Professor Pierre Gomez. You are welcome, sir. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in my own interest, I will not introduce the next gentleman seated very close to the Honorable Minister because I know the implication. There is a gentleman who is saddled with the responsibility of introducing him, and I will bring him up when the time comes. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Chairman, you are skipped. Thank you very much, sir. Sitting very close to him is the Registrar to Council, Mr. Pateba. You are welcome, Mr. Registrar, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Also, at this table, we have the Chief Government Nominee of the Gambia, Mr. Ibrahima Sissawo. You are welcome, sir. At the last but not the least, representing the Gambia on the board of trustees of the WAEC Endowment Fund, Mrs. Adelaide Sose. Good afternoon, madam. Thank you very much. We have council members here present, and I want to recognize them. Oh, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Council members from Ghana. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Council members from Liberia. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Council members from Nigeria. Council members from Nigeria. Thank you very much. And council members from Sierra Leone. Oh, thank you very, very much. Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, we also have the direct beneficiaries of WAEC activities in this hall. They are the students of the various schools we have invited to come and grace this occasion. If you don't mind, I will also ask them to stand up and wave at us. Students in our midst, please stand up. Before you take your seat, can you please go to the second page of this small brochure you have in your hands? Have you seen it? Yes, let's go through it together. 1, 2. Beware. Examination malpractice is an offense punishable under the law. Do not bring in any books or papers into the examination hall. Do not write an examination on behalf of another person. Do not give or receive expo. Do not insult, assault any supervisor or invigilator. Do not spy on other candidates' work, nor allow others to spy your work. Do not talk to other candidates during examinations. You will definitely be caught and penalty awaits offenders. Please clap for yourselves. Thank you very much. And that is the message we want you to take back to your colleagues who are not privileged to be here. Thank you very much. You may have your seat. We also want to recognize the award recipients who are also here this afternoon. Please, awardees, can you please stand up for recognition? Oh, thank you very much. Don't worry, we are going to introduce you superlatively tomorrow. Please have your seat. Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister, Mr. Chairman, let me invite Austin to take us through the introduction of the CGN and other non-council members representing WAEC Endowment Fund. Austin.
Thank you, Femi. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this lecture, which is the 28th in the series of annual lectures organized under the banner of the WAEC Endowment Fund, is the first public function for the 71st Annual Council Meeting of WAEC, which we hold commencing from today, the 13th of March, and then up to the 17th of March, 2023. And we want to recognize the presence of the chief government nominees from majorly the 4 other member countries. The chief government nominee for the Gambia has been introduced. And please, just as we call the country and the name of the chief government nominee, they will just please respectfully wave at us. For Ghana, we have Dr. Eric Nkansa as the chief government nominee representing Ghana and the council. For Liberia, we have Honorable Alexander Duopu. For Nigeria and the vice chairman, we are still expecting her. For Sierra Leone, we have Professor Yahya Jammeh. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some distinguished members here who are non-council members of the WAEC Board of Trustees of the Endowment Fund. They actually represent that instrument that led to this lecture that we are about receiving this afternoon. And I want to introduce them. For Ghana, we have Nana Appiagyei Dankawoso the First. For Liberia, we have Mrs. Hawa Golkochi. For Nigeria, we have Mr. G.O. Uzoigwe. And for Sierra Leone, we have Dr. Dele Sano. The 5 member countries are headed by what we call our heads of national offices. They oversee the operations at each of those nations and report to the registrar at the center. We want to recognize them here. For Ghana, we have our HNO, Mrs. Wendy Adilamte. For Liberia, Mr. Dale Boto. For Nigeria, Mr. Patrick Aragan. For Sierra Leone, Mr. Mustafa Koroma. The HNO for the Gambia has been introduced to us, but he's our host, and I want to also recognize him, Mr. Pa Samba Balde, HNO the Gambia. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 26 years, the annual Endowment Fund has been a very stimulating and eye-opening encounter. Each year's lecture has thrown up more light on pertinent issues and offered cogent solutions to them. I believe today's lecture will not be anything less than that. So get set to enjoy this lecture this afternoon. Femi, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Austin. I would say behind or beside every successful man, there must be a woman. And that is why we have the spouse of Mr. Chairman here, and I would like to introduce her to you. The chairman's wife is here all the way from Accra, Ghana. Mrs. Salumin Esuma. Please, can you rise for recognition? Thank you very much, madam. We also have the wife of the Registrar to Council here, Mrs. Isatu Sowe Ba. Madam, you are welcome. Good to see you. We also have the immediate past council chairman. He steered the ship of council during the turbulent period of COVID-19 pandemic. And by the special grace of Almighty, he was able to sail and pilot us all through. We have here in our midst, in a distinguished manner, former chairman of council, Mr. Babuka Boy. Mr. Babuka Boy, you are welcome, sir. We also have the former registrar to council here. His administration witnessed the tremendous transformation of WAEC in the area of technology. Mr. Matthew Undru is also here. Mr. Undru, you are welcome, sir. Good to see you once again. You are welcome, sir. The Honorable Minister, Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. My name is Femi Oke. I'm flying with me this afternoon are Austin Idohai and Peter.
former chairman of council, Mr. Balkar Boy, former registrar to council, Mr. Matthew P. Noor, former heads of national office. I know Mr. EMS Njai is in our midst here. I also know that the member on the endowment fund from Nigeria, Mr. Gio Uzogwe, is also a former head of national office. So we take this opportunity to also introduce him as a former head of national office. You are welcome, sir. We also wish to go back and introduce Mr. Matthew Noor, who has already been introduced as the former registrar, also as a former registrar, former head of national office. You are welcome, sir. Distinguished friends of council, again, I repeat by the name of Mr. Matthew P. Noor as a former distinguished member, then directors from the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, members of staff and retirees of the council, school heads, teachers and students, award recipients and their parents here present, esteemed guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. My task this evening is a bit difficult one because I have the singular honor and privilege this evening to introduce the chairman of council. When I looked at chairman's CV, it's actually more than 10 pages. And I thought since this program is an evening program and we don't intend to spend the whole night here, I needed to summarize, but I hope chairman will forgive me if I leave out very important aspect. I have tried as much as possible to summarize it to one page, you can imagine. So please listen keenly, as if you don't listen about some of the most important things that you should know about this chairman will elude you. This distinguished personality from the Republic of Ghana received his formal education from different institutions, both at home and abroad, where he acquired various qualifications, among which are a combined major in economics and law, MBA operations management, and a doctor of education at the University of Sussex, United Kingdom. He is a member of several professional bodies and networks, which include the British Association of International and Comparative Education, Ghana Institute of Management, Institute of Directors in Ghana, and Project Management Institute of the Ghana chapter. His work career has taken him to many parts of the world, including Australia, Japan, Zimbabwe, and Nigeria, in addition to his home country of Ghana. He has at different times worked for Coopers and Lee Brand, which is now known as PricewaterhouseCoopers. And he also worked for Techno Service Incorporated as business and financial advisor. He also worked with Nestle as budget accountant, internal auditor, and productivity engineer. He was the coordinator of development partners from 1999 to 2003, and in 2004 he was appointed the chief director, otherwise known as permanent secretary of the Ministry of Education in Ghana. He held this position until 2009. He has served as a consultant for the World Bank and other development partners. He was appointed to the rank of associate professor in 2018 and attained full professorship in education and development in 2020. He is currently the Dean of the Faculty of Education and Entrepreneurship at the Methodist University of Ghana. He is a leading voice in education and has been a keynote speaker at various educational fora internationally, including the World Economic Forum in 2011 at Cape Town, South Africa. He has authored a number of books and contributed chapters to several others. He has, to his credit, many articles in reputable international journals, several conference papers, and over 40 contributions to international conferences, workshops, and seminars. On the home front, he has been a member of the Council of State, a body of eminent Ghanaians who advised the President of the Republic of Ghana for 3 terms from 2004 to date. And I think it's also necessary to explain further that during that period, he actually served under this Council of State under 4 different civilian presidents, from the tenure of John Ajekum Kufuor to the current president, who is Nana Akufo-Addo. So this tells you the kind of personality that we are talking about. He has been deeply involved in activities of the Methodist Church Ghana since his youthful days, and in 2002 he was elected to the high office of lay priest of the Methodist Church Ghana for a 3-year term. For the Christians, I'm sure they know what the meaning of lay president is. Some of us may not know, but it is a high position in the church. Currently in Ghana, he is the chairman of the Donwell Insurance Company Limited and the Centerlink Investments Limited. This gentleman's association with the West African Examinations Council, WAEC, started when he was the Chief Director of Education in 2005 to 2009. During the period, he had the privilege of attending WAEC meetings and events as a member of Ghana delegation. He interacted extensively with the chairman, the registrar, and staff of the organization, and became a leading voice at council meetings, bringing out new thinking and perspectives on issues. He was an advocate for WAEC in Ghana, advancing the council's interests and supporting its activities. He used his position, connection, and influence to ensure budgetary provisions for the council, particularly towards the completion of the current WAEC headquarters building project in Ghana. At the 69th annual council meeting held in March 2021, this foremost educationist, Professor Ato Esuman, was elected by acclamation as the 20th chairman of WAEC for a 3-year tenure, 2021 to 2024, in line with the council's convention. He took over from our own citizen, our own brother and uncle, Mr. Baukar Boy, as the chairman of council. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the gentleman I have introduced to you in brief, Professor Ato Esuman. Thank you very much.
You've done very well. Thank you very much, Mr. Registrar. I thought you said we were going to be brief. Thank you for all the things said about me. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me crave your indulgence to rely on the protocols already established and exceptionally recognize Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Honorable Minister of the Public Service and immediate past Chairman of Council, our distinguished guest speaker, Professor Herbert Robinson. I accept to chair this function. It was a joy coming back to the Gambia. We were here last December to finalize our strategic plan, but I was even more excited because the person who handed over to me did that virtually. At least I had the opportunity of meeting him in December, and I'm happy that at an annual conference, which is very different from what was witnessed some 2 years ago, we can see our ourselves face to face. Now, let me on behalf of Council thank you, all of you, for your time to be here to listen to the Endowment Fund lecture. Since I have the privilege of making some closing remarks, I'll reserve my comments until I have another opportunity. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Please, more round of applause for the chairman. Thank you very much, sir. Before I call on Peter, the head of cabin crew, to come and introduce interlude, let me recognize the presence of Reverend Father Moses Jammeh of the Blessed Sacrament Catholic Church, Kanifi Estate. You are welcome, Reverend Father. Thank you very much, sir. Let me also add, I introduced Mr. Babuka Boy as former chairman of council. I've been told that Mr. Babuka Boy is the Honorable Minister for Public Service Reforms of the Republic of the Gambia. Thank you very much, sir. Honorable Minister, you are welcome. Thank you very much. Peter, please.
Good afternoon. Unlike the Registrar to Council, Mr. Pateba, who said his was a difficult task, my task for now, by contrast, is a simple one. It's just to call on the police band to entertain us for 2 minutes. I've been told to advise you to entertain us only for 2 minutes, and then we will continue. So that means that the program has been slightly altered, so that as soon as the guest speaker is introduced, we do not break and forget everything about him that was said. He will go straight into his lecture. Police band, you have 2 minutes starting now. Thank you very much, police band. You didn't have to wait to be asked to stop. Moving forwards, I now have the pleasant task to introduce a friend, a sister, a longtime colleague, the non-council member of the Board of Trustees of the West African Examination Council's Endowment Fund. I hope the Power Authority were not trying to stop me from introducing the next speaker, Mrs. Adelaide Sose. Adelaide is an educator, a gender specialist, and human rights advocate. She recently served as the deputy chairperson of the Gambia's Truth, Reconciliation, and Reparations Committee, TRRC, set up by government to establish the historical record of human rights violations of over 22 years, promote national reconciliation, and consider the granting of reparation to victims. Mrs. Sose is a former director of schools and had served in various roles in the education sector before rising to the position of director under the restructured Ministry of Education. From there, she transited to Women's Affairs and worked under the Office of the President as project manager of the Multi-Donor Women in Development Project. Post-government, Mrs. Sose became an active member of civil society and was appointed Executive Director of Worldview the Gambia, a communications development agency, in 1999, a position she held until 2010. She also founded or chaired several civil society organizations at the national, regional, and global levels, including the Education for All Campaign Network as founder and chairperson from 2000 to 2010, the Pro-Poor Advocacy Group, or Pro-PAG, as founder and chairperson, 2000 to 2009, the National Human Rights Defenders as founder and secretary general, 2000 to 2006, the Gambia Red Cross Society as member of the executive board, 2004 to 2007, Amnesty International the Gambia as member, 2000 to 2005, and the Global Campaign Against Poverty, GCAP, including as global co-chair from 2005 to 2010, and Ambassador 2010 to date. Mrs. Sose has also served as the Executive Director of the Africa Institute for Leadership, or GALE, an organization focused on developing the leadership capacities of emerging youth leaders. At the regional level, she served as a resource expert for the ECOWAS Gender Development Center from 2005 to 2016, conducting gender training in all the ECOWAS countries and developing gender training manuals for the region. At the global level, she served on the Global Advisory Committee for UN Girls Education and as a representative of the Africa Campaign Network on Education for All. But more relevant to this event, I now introduce her as a non-council member of the Board of Trustees of the West African Examinations Council Endowment Fund, Mrs. Adelaide Sose. And she will give a brief history of the WAEC Endowment Fund lecture, as it says on your program.
Thank you, Police Band. Thank you, Peter, for that lofty introduction. Thank you. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce the Endowment Fund lecture as a member of the Board of Trustees, non-council member of the Board of Trustees of the WAEC Endowment Fund. A representative of the Minister of Education, Chairman of the West African Examinations Council, honorable ministers and members of the National Assembly members, members of the Consular and Diplomatic Corps, members of council, registrar to council, distinguished friends of council, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the WAEC Endowment Fund to the 28th Endowment Fund Lecture to be delivered here today. The Board of Trustees of the West African Examinations Council's Endowment Fund was instituted in 1984 at the 30th Annual Council meeting in Monrovia, Liberia. The objectives for the fund, for which the fund was established are: 1, the promotion of educational development projects of an international nature related to the objectives of the Council undertaken in the member countries of Council. The provision of funds for awards to candidates for outstanding performance in examinations conducted by Council in member countries of Council. Educational research in aptitude testing and standardization of continuous assessment. Development of integrated curriculum and syllabuses. Development of textbooks. Conferment of the Distinguished Friend of Council Award on deserving personalities. Any other projects relevant in the furtherance of the aims and objectives of the fund. The annual Endowment Fund Lecture is held as part of the activities for the annual council meetings hosted by the member countries. The inaugural lecture, titled "The Role of the West African Examinations Council in the Promotion of Democracy, Sustainable Development and International Cooperation in West Africa," was delivered by Emeritus Professor E.A. Boateng in Accra on the 18th of March, 1996. Since then, 27 lectures have been given to date by leading educationists, professors, doctors, researchers, scientists, politicians, and administrators. These include, in order by year, Professor Emeritus Eldred D. Jones, 1997, Professor Vincent Chukwuemeka Ike, 1998, Dr. Lenry Peters, 1999, Mr. Moore T. Worrell, 2000, Professor Florence A. Dolphin, 2001, Professor John Ayode, 2002, Dr. Mambiran Juf, 2003, Professor Ernest H. M. Wright, 2004, Monsignor Dr. Robert G. Tikpor, 2005, Professor Ivan Ade Mensa, 2006, Professor I.E. Nwanwa, 2007, Right Reverend Dr. S. Tillaway Johnson, 2008, Professor Abdullah Mansari, 2009, Dr. D. Evelyn S. Kandakai, 2010, Professor Daniel A. Akiebong, 2011, Professor Emeritus Pius Augustine Aike Obanya. 2012, Professor Mohamedu M. Oka. 2013, Professor E.J.D. Thompson. 2014, Honorable Augustine Ngafuan. 2015, Professor Jonathan A. Fletcher. 2016, Professor Amos Shaibu. 2017, Babukar Suley Sar. 2018, Professor Joe A.D. Alai. 2019, Honorable Samuel D. Twe, Junior Minister of Finance and Development Planning, Liberia. 2020, Professor Kafue Etsi. 2021, and Professor Ngozi Osarenen Renren. 2022. Speaking on different thematics areas of their choice, which are the themes are listed in the program guide, these learned and erudite speakers have given their perspectives on how to make teaching and learning more efficient, effective, and relevant, not only in schools, but in tertiary institutions, on the role and relevance of examinations in ensuring quality education, and how to meet the resource requirements that make quality education accessible to all, on the roles and responsibilities of all actors in ensuring that educational goals and objectives are met, and that excellence in educational standards are met. These lectures have helped shape education policy in WAEC member countries and are important in the operations of Council. Sadly, some of these distinguished personalities who delivered their lectures as listed are no longer with us. These include Professor E.A. Boateng, who delivered the first lecture in 1996, Professor Eldred Jones, the second lecture, 1997, Professor Vincent Chukwuemeka Ike, the third lecture in 1998, Dr. Lenry Peters, the fourth lecture in 1999, Dr. Mambiran Juf, the eighth lecture in 2003, Right Reverend Dr. Tilawe Johnson, the 13th lecture in 2008, and Professor D.A. Akiyampong, the 16th lecture in 2011. The legacy of these distinguished men lives on in the annals of WAEC, as lectures are published and distributed to WAEC offices and schools in the member countries. The digitalization of these texts will make them more accessible to a broader range of readers. Due to the coronavirus, in-person meetings were suspended. This resulted in the postponement of the 68th annual council meeting, which was to be held in Monrovia, Liberia, from March 23rd to 27, 2020. The format for delivering the lecture changed, and the last three lectures were delivered virtually. These were the 25th Annual Endowment Lecture by Honorable Samuel D. Twe, Minister of Finance and Development Planning, Liberia, the 26th Annual Fund Lecture by Professor Kafue Etsi, Lecturer, University of Cape Coast, 2021, and the 27th lecture by Professor Ngozi Azuka Ozarenren from the Educational Foundation Department of the University of Lagos in 2022. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are thankful and grateful to the Almighty that we are able to hold this meeting in the Gambia in continuation of this long tradition of public lectures. We are here to listen, to learn, and to take away important messages from the lecture by Professor Herbert Robinson, Vice Chancellor of the University of the Gambia, during the 28th edition of the West African Endowment Fund Lecture on the topic, Responding to Africa's Development Challenges Through Transformative Pedagogy, the Role of the Three Ages. I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sose. So the WAEC Endowment Fund lecture has just been introduced. Its history has just been told us. But WAEC wouldn't just be satisfied with an ordinary MC introducing its guest speaker. So they have brought in the chief government nominee and chairman of the Gambia Administrative and Finance Committee, Mr. Ibrahima Sissawo, who is also the current permanent secretary in the ministry, the Gambia's Ministry for Basic and Secondary Education. He's a very experienced man. I also knew him to be permanent secretary in 2 ministries prior, Ministry of Transport Works and Infrastructure, and also the Ministry of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment. I now invite Mr. Ibrahima Sissawo to come and introduce the guest speaker in his capacity as Chief Government Nominee and Chairman of the Gambia Administrative and Finance Committee. Mr. Sissawo.
Good evening. Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, representing the Honorable Minister of Basic and Secondary Education, Professor Gomez, Honorable Minister of Public Service and Admin Reform, Honorable Babukar Boy, Chairman of Council, members of the National Assembly, members of Diplomatic and Consular Corps, members of Council, Registrar to Council, staff of Council, students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am humbled to be given the honor and privilege to introduce to you the distinguished Gambian personality and global citizen tasked with presenting the 28th WAEC Endowment Fund lecture this afternoon. Our guest lecturer today, who has traversed the globe and touched many lives, started his pursuit for knowledge in the Gambia at Albion Primary School, where he was from 1970-1971 academic year to 1972-73 academic year. He later moved to Wesley Primary School in 1973-1974 academic year, where he sat to the then Common Entrance Examination in 1977-78 academic year. Our guest lecturer passed the Common Entrance with flying colors, securing a place at St. Augustine High School, where he would be from 1978 to 1983. At St. Augustine's, our guest lecturer had the best results in science and won prize for the best students in mathematics when he sat to the GC ordinary level exam in 1983. After then, he moved to Gambia High School, where he completed his 6th form. In 1985, our guest lecturer again won the Victoria Peter Prize for the best student in mathematics at Gambia High School upon completion of his GC advanced level. From August 1985 to August 1986, he joined the Medical Research Council, MRC, now London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, the Banjul unit, as a research lab assistant in parasitology lab. There he collected samples from fieldwork and carried out various tests relating to malaria and immunology. using lab techniques as well as assist research clinicians and scientists in reviewing and identifying articles for malaria research and academic journals. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the hunger for knowledge and personal development saw our guest lecturer graduating from University of Reading in 1989 with BSc honor in quantity surveying, with his dissertation rated the best first class and submitted for the University Prize and Barry Teckle Project Award for University in the UK. Upon completion of his studies, he worked with Arup Partnership as the Arup Associate in London, UK, a world-renowned prestigious engineering architectural firm from August 1987 to November 1990 as quantity surveyor, where he was involved in a number of prestigious infrastructure and construction projects, including Deloitte's bank headquarters in Bristol. While there, he mastered the Arup Oracle computer system for managing cost and financial implications of design variation, tracking architects and engineers, instruction to assess the impact of construction cost, and to take action to ensure budgets are not exceeded. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest lecturer returned home to work with the then Ministry of Works and Communication from 1991 to 1993 as the UNDP national expert. He was involved in preparing and reviewing bidding documents for various sectors, including the then Ministry of Education, and also served as a member of an urban management technical committee as part of the World Bank Public Works and capacity building and poverty alleviation projects to identify small-scale pilot rehabilitation projects. From there, he proceeded to the University of Stuttgart, Germany, and bagged an MIP, that's Master of Infrastructure Planning, in 1995. Some 20 years today, he added a PhD in Infrastructure Economics from South Bank University, UK, 2001. He was appointed as a research scholar from 1996 to May 2000 while pursuing his PhD program at the same university. While there, he served as a member of the Faculty Research Degree Committee from 1997 to 2000, and also a member of the International Academic Advisory Panel for establishing the University of the Gambia from February 9 to 16, 2000. In June 2000, he moved to Loughborough University, Leicestershire in UK, where he served till November 2000, rising through the ranks to the position of Senior Research Associate Knowledge Management, before heading back to London South Bank University, where he rose through the ranks to become a full professor of construction economics, a position he served in until the United Nations came calling in August 2012. He joined the United Nations Africa Institute for Economic Development and Planning, part of UNECA, in Dakar from August 2012 to 2015, first as a regional advisor from August 2012 to December 2014, then head of training division from January 2015 to December 2015, and was also the acting director from May 2015 until August 2015. From Dakar in West Africa, it was time for our guest lecturer to make another move, this time as a consultant rapporteur working on various assignments with International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, based in Ethiopia, East Africa, from 2016 to July 2016, from February 2016 to July 2016. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our guest lecturer, whose love for academia is apparent, will make a return, and guess where? To London South Bank University, which then seemed to be his home. As a professor of project management and sustainability strategy, and academic director of Research Center in Construction Management and Economics from September 2016 to July 2019. There, he provided leadership in research, knowledge, transfer, and innovation, and led the development of quality education, supporting learning via virtual learning environment, among others. He has authored a plethora of publications, including books, book chapters, technical papers, policy brief, and articles in leading international journals, and conferences in Europe, Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, and USA. Our guest lecturer was appointed Director of Knowledge, Research, and Learning by Africa Capacity Building Foundation from July 2019 to March 2021 in Harare, Zimbabwe, where he provided leadership in the knowledge of learning department in shaping the strategic orientation, managing knowledge products in the virtual libraries, organizing and supporting knowledge sharing event of ACBF, major partners, and the production and dissemination of publication to inform policy and capacity building intervention in the range of sectors, including education, to respond to the priority needs of Africa towards achieving the AU Agenda 2063 and UN SDG Goals 2030 targets. Ladies and gentlemen, I crave your indulgence to end this condensed introduction of our lecturer here. I trust if our guest lecturer was to introduce himself today, he would have himself made omission of some of very important works and accolades accredited to him, such are the numerous activities he has been involved in. What I have attempted to do in Maine, therefore, was not to give a comprehensive introduction that truly represents our guest lecturer in all facets, but to give you a summary version of his profile. Our guest lecturer, please, I apologize for not doing justice in mentioning all your other numerous qualifications, achievements, appointments, publications, and service to humanity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our guest lecturer this afternoon is no other than Professor Herbert Robinson, Vice Chancellor of the University of the Gambia, a renowned expert in knowledge management, research and learning, construction, economics, and management. Thank you all.
May we please rise as we invite the guest lecturer to the podium, please. Guest lecturer.
Thank you, Permanent Secretary Sisawo, for that wonderful introduction and setting the stage for my lecture. Honorable Minister of Basic and Secondary Education, represented by the Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Science, Research and Technology, Honorable Minister, Public Service Reform, other cabinet ministers present, chairperson, vice chairperson, members of the WAEC Council, past council members, members of the Board of Trustees of the WAEC Endowment Fund, WAEC staff present, government officials, students, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am honored to have the opportunity to address such a distinguished audience. It is great to see many friends and acquaintances here, academics and scholars, as well as civil servants. Thank you all for coming here. let me begin by congratulating the West African It is indeed fitting that this very important event in the life of WAEC is being hosted or staged here in this marvelous conference center in the Gambia. The West African Examination Council was established by law in 1952 to determine examinations required in the public interest in the English-speaking West African countries, to conduct exams and to award certificates that are comparable to other examinations internationally. Since then, the Council has contributed immensely to education in West African member states, Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and the Gambia. Undoubtedly, a major contribution of the Council to education in our sub-region is the creation of the WAEC Endowment Fund. From 1996 to date, more than 25 lectures were delivered in diverse topics as part of the Endowment Fund lecture series. The Endowment Fund's creation is clearly a reflection of WAEC's vision of adding value to educational goals of its stakeholders. The lectures demonstrate and confirm the present status of WAEC as a vehicle for continuity and change. Today, I feel extremely honored and privileged to add to the contributions of the illustrious academics and personalities by delivering this Endowment Fund lecture. The title of the lecture is Responding to Africa's Development Challenges Through Transformative Pedagogy, the role of the 3H. In the next hour or so, I will provide you with some reflection about how we need to respond to Africa's development challenges through pedagogy, but moving away from traditional approaches. Firstly, I will provide a context of where we are, the challenges of education, and how it's impacting our socio-economic development progress, followed by an outline of the key continental and regional agenda for education. Next, I will discuss the challenges in the teacher-learner curriculum, the TLC. That's a very delicate, should be handled with tender love and care. And I'll draw from the experience of the Gambia in that relationship. Finally, I'll examine whether our current approach is responsive to our future needs, and argue for the need for change, the need for transformative pedagogy, revisiting that balance between the 3H. What I mean by the 3H is the head, the hand, and the heart. I think that's at the center of any transformation we can do here. First of all, let me start by giving you a brief background. In many African countries, we know there are significant challenges affecting the quality of the education system in terms of the processes and end products, with severe negative impact on socio-economic development. As a result, African countries continue to lag behind in terms of major development indicators characterized by poverty, inequality, disparities, poor health outcomes, instability, and poor infrastructure network. Let me start this lecture with a quote from a recent article from the World Bank to demonstrate the importance of education. Education is a human right, a powerful driver of development, and one of the strongest instruments for reducing poverty, improving health, gender equality, peace, and stability. It delivers large, consistent returns in terms of income and is the most important factor to ensure equity and inclusion. According to the same World Bank report, globally, there is a 9% increase in hourly earnings for every extra year spent in the school system. It is true that developing countries have made tremendous progress in getting children into the classroom. However, educational quality remains a problem. For example, African students rank lowest international in reading and computational skills. Today, we have children in Africa who cannot read and understand a simple text by age 10. We have learning poverty in our midst, and it was here even before COVID. Quality education is therefore critical in advancing development in Africa. But this requires a rethink. We have to go back to the drawing board to look at what we need to do. And I'm going to suggest here that Africa must be in its driving seat in terms of our agenda, our development agenda. And I'm going to highlight the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030 and our own African Union Agenda 2063. This must be at the heart of our thinking in terms of how we advance education for Africa and to achieve the development goals of our citizens. Let me just briefly highlight these global and continental initiatives for the advancement of education. The global and continental initiatives are there to provide guidance to African governments in the formulation of education policies, setting the standards, and regulating the education system. Now, if you look at the Sustainable Development Goal 4, at the global level, it focuses on education to ensure inclusive, equitable, quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Sustainable Development Goal 4 has 7 targets, which are expected outcomes by 2030, and the 3 means of implementation to achieve the 7 targets. Now, I'll just highlight what these targets are. The first one is universal primary and secondary education. The second one is early childhood development, universal pre-primary education. And the third is equal access to technical, vocational, and higher education. The fourth one, relevant skills for decent work. The fifth one, gender equality and inclusion. And the sixth one, universal youth literacy. And the last one, the seventh, education for sustainable development and global citizenship. Learners need to acquire knowledge and skills to promote sustainable development, including human rights, promotion of peace and nonviolence, and appreciation of cultural diversity and its contribution to sustainable development. And of course, you cannot achieve those targets without a means to do so. And here the 3 means of implementation are developing effective learning environments, including infrastructure, expanding globally the number of scholarships available, and increasing the supply of qualified teachers in developing countries. Now, if you look at our own Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, at that level, we are talking of Africa's blueprint, the master plan for transforming Africa into a global powerhouse of the future. Aspiration 1 focuses on creating a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development, with Goal 2 at the center, focusing on developing well-educated citizens and skills to support Africa's revolution, and key skills, especially in science, technology, and innovation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Africa's challenge is not only to create employment fast enough to keep pace with this population growth we're experiencing. The bigger challenge for us is to provide the relevant skills to join a productive workforce. The African Union Agenda 2063, the regional and national development plans, demands that Africa invest in the right skills, particularly in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I think we are far behind in terms of investment, and that's the only way that can drive our continent forward, particularly with regard to the flagship initiatives and priority programs. I've got some slides here. Now, these are the continent's major drivers, major programs. And if you look at the first one there, it talks about the integrated high-speed train network to connect Africa's capitals to commercial centers. This is important in order to facilitate movement of goods, people, and services, and to reduce our transport costs. Now, if you look at the second one, commodity strategy, this is the continental plan to reduce our current approach. The current approach is for us to export raw materials. Now, what does it mean if we have to move away from that? It means we need to have the skills, we need to have to develop our own capacity. We need to ensure that we add value, not just export our commodities to other parts of the world. If you look at the continental free trade area, now many of you or some of you will be aware that this has come into force. And recently I noticed that people were complaining about the prices of cement coming from Senegal, neighboring Senegal. That's because we have signed up as a country to the continental free trade area. It means that competition will be expected from other countries, and it's good because it's driving efficiency and productivity. Now, if you look at the Grand Inga Dam project, Africa's biggest challenge is electricity, and that project is designed to help the continent address those problems. The African Outer Space Strategy, also important, the African passport and free movement of people. I think it's important for us to note that sometimes with a European passport, an American passport, it is easier to travel within Africa. We must ask ourselves, why is this the case? Africa needs to address that problem. So that particular initiative on the African passport and free movement of people is designed to achieve that. The program for infrastructure development in Africa, again, is a major initiative to ensure that we can travel within the continent by building infrastructure, whether it's transport, water, electricity, and so forth. You can see there is a science, technology, innovation strategy for Africa. There is the Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program. There is the African Mining Vision. Now, if you look at the African Mining Vision, for example, we have natural resources. I think you could find almost all the natural resources in the world in Africa. Africa is rich in terms of natural resources, but we are still poor because of the way natural resources have been harnessed. So the African Mining Vision, for example, set out a developmental approach that ensures that Africa cannot export raw materials. We cannot export raw natural resources, because that is why it's also felt that natural resources is a cost for Africa. It shouldn't be like that. And the last one there is the Accelerated Industrial Development Program, which is trying to develop Africa as an industrial giant. Now, what does this mean? It means that we have all these continental vision, these priorities and programs, but are we responding to it? Are we responding to these challenges in terms of our curriculum, our teachers, and our learners? That is the key question we must ask ourselves. Unfortunately, Africa's key development initiatives are not adequately captured in our curriculum, and they are not reflected in our teaching and learning at all levels. We must revisit that. We must revisit that so that the kids at very early stages are aware of the dream of Africa to transform it to a prosperous continent. The critical technical skills for our development agenda has not been prioritized for more than 2 decades. That is why we're here. There is limited evidence of prioritization of developing these critical skills that are necessary to push all these projects forward. The importance of developing a skilled workforce is a critical step to accomplish the goals of Agenda 2063. Without the skills and entrepreneurial creativity, which must include youth and women, the evolution of all these flagship initiatives across different sectors, infrastructure, agriculture, space, mining, trade, including the long overdue Africa Continental Free Trade Area, will not come to fruition. That's critical. So we need to respond to that. The World Economic Forum, in a report recently developed in 2019, estimated that 15 to 20 million young people will join the African workforce every year for the next 2 decades. The same report further indicated that by 2030, Africa will be home to more than a quarter of the world's population under 25. It's a huge opportunity, but a big challenge for us. So it means that we have these youths, and we need to ensure that their creativity and talents are utilized to address the continent's vision and priorities. Now, just to summarize in terms of what we're saying all these big projects, big dreams, but the continent's education systems needs to be transformed to respond to those big agenda items there. Opportunities for the youths are there, but also we need to be prepared to respond rapidly to the changing demands of our African economies. So that is the context. That is the sort of development, that's the sort of aspirations we have as a continent. How do we respond in terms of our education systems? Let me start by examining the teacher-learner curriculum relationship. It's a tender, loving care. That is a delicate thing which we must get right. Education is a process of imparting knowledge, skills, and attitude to prepare individuals to contribute to society and our development aspirations. The teacher-learner curriculum relationship is at the center of the holistic learning process, and it must be supported by policies and parents, of course, other factors. Now, if you look at the teacher, I'm drawing from the experience of the Gambia. Our teacher training college has not produced the quantity of teachers we need. And I'm sure other countries in the sub-region will have the same experience. The University of the Gambia, we have a school of education, but we continue to rely heavily on technical support due to limited Gambian experts in the field. So that's a key problem. But the second thing we need to consider here is teacher quality at the entry level. There is a big problem with that. The quality of teachers in our education system continues to be a challenge, as the best and brightest are no longer recruited. I emphasize, are no longer recruited into the teaching field. That was not the case when I was growing up as a young boy. We used to have some of the best teachers, and the teaching profession was very attractive then. So we need to look at that. The quality of your input, of course. If you have quality standards or poor entry, it will impact on the outputs. Such a trend has been worrying and calls for a rethinking. The teacher quantity I mentioned briefly, but let me share some statistics with you. Sub-Saharan Africa alone requires 15 million more teachers to reach the education goals by 2030. Surmounting these challenges will require bold commitment, investment, and innovation on a scale of unprecedented magnitude. That's a huge challenge for us. We need to generate that quantity in order to be able to address or at least meet the targets of SDG 4 by 2030. Teacher retention. So you can have teachers, but the challenge is always there to retain them. The low incentives is a problem. I was assured that incentives have improved in the Gambia, but we still face challenges. And I'm sure many of our countries in the sub-region are also experiencing sort of challenges. Teacher development is another key area. The development of teachers should be enhanced to promote quality. Governments should initiate our strengthening and in-service training program. I think that's very important for teachers to keep up to speed and to develop best practice in teaching and learning. Let me come to the learner. I talk about the TLC, teacher, learner, and curriculum. The learner has some challenges. I think we have students here today. If you look at assessment and education, assessment is defined as the practice of collecting evidence of learning in terms of knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes. But are the tests designed to capture all these elements? Later on, I will share with you our own findings in the Gambia here based on certain subjects. We have 4 national examinations and 1 international examination in the Gambia. But I think if you look at all these tests and examinations, they are assessed predominantly focusing on knowledge, not the other elements that are important, equally important, and in some cases more important. There is also the issue when it comes to learners, fear of failure. Learners focus on learning to pass and not necessarily to understand. They just want to learn for scoring good grades. Again, that has to be addressed. How do we reverse those trends? And in certain countries, like the Gambia, learners have limited options, and they tend to choose subjects that focus on academic knowledge areas, just because we don't have the depth in terms of subject areas. So they are forced to choose those sort of subjects. And again, if you look at learners, we have the problem of double shifting. This is not unique to the Gambia. I'm sure other countries are experiencing that as well. And double shifting, due to limited infrastructure and availability of teachers, no doubt is impacting on the learning experience of students. I have read recently that the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education in the Gambia would need $2.5 billion to eliminate double shifting. That's a huge investment. But double shifting compromises standards, so we must look at it. The third element in that TLC, teacher-learner relationship, is the curriculum. There is a disconnect between the skills that are supplied and what the labor market needs. And that has to be addressed in our school systems, as well as university systems. Vocational training, technical education must be linked to the specific needs in the labor market, including, most important, the skills to create businesses, entrepreneurships. Technical and vocational education and training is key to unlocking the youth unemployment challenges facing many African countries. New approaches must therefore be developed to match the demand and supply side of the market. So we need to look at our curriculum to see whether it's addressing what our country needs. And on the curriculum too, I talk about the traditional pedagogic approach. No doubt, teachers play a major role as the most important link in the learning environment because of their skills, perspective, and competences. However, the traditional approach has limitations, and it has not delivered the results and impact we all expected. So that is the challenge we face. What do we need to do? I am suggesting that we need to go back to the drawing board and think of a new transformative approach for sustainable development. And I'll explain that. The teacher can be a change agent for shaping the learner's approach to knowledge acquisition, problem solving, applying knowledge and skills in real life situations. Today's young generation are the leaders of the future, and a transformative pedagogic approach will determine their learning experience, their thinking, how practically prepared they are, and their behavior and values. Ordinarily, they become what they are prepared to be. So if we don't revisit our curriculum, we will not make the changes that we expect. There is a need for a shift because the challenges are there, and we need to think about seriously. Our education system must respond to Africa's development priorities. Our textbooks, our curricula must respond to the challenges we face as a continent. And that is not happening. There is progress being made, but it is very slow. A shift in educational goals would mean that we need to look at the curriculum again. We need to look at the role and function of teachers. We need to reorientate learners, the TLC. And that requires the right policies to ensure that teachers are adequately trained to prepare learners to become independent thinkers and problem solvers, ready to take Africa to the next level of excellence to facilitate sustainable development. What is transformative pedagogy? It empowers learners to examine critically what they've been taught, to examine critically their beliefs and their values in order to respond to the challenges we face as a nation. I say this because there is a problem in terms of how we approach the learning. And I remember some years ago, I was in the UK in one of the universities, and my head of department said to me that he set an exam, but the students from Africa just reproduce exactly what they were told. Now, for me, that's a reflection of the type of pedagogy. We don't prepare our students to reflect, to add to what they've already been given. And I think, in many ways, that is a setback. We need to review how we teach and what we expect from our students. Transformative pedagogy is learning that induces far-reaching change in the learner. The learner needs to be critical. The learner needs to be aware of the social, political context. It is the kind of learning that can produce the results that we expect in Africa. It is also viewed as education that recognizes inequities and endeavors to create a more just and sustainable society. How do we achieve that? A sustainable society, a more just society, where a learner becomes aware of the socio-economic, political, and environmental context to transform lives and livelihoods of people at various social strata. Transformative pedagogy should therefore guide learners academically and morally in their daily lives outside the classroom. Let me give you an example of what I mean. The curriculum is a key determinant in type of citizens a society wishes to produce. Bloom, which is, I'm sure academics are very familiar with that, in 1956, identified 3 domains of learning: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. What are the 3 H's required for this transformation? I talk about the 3 H's. If you look at Bloom's taxonomy of learning, he's simply saying you need to think about the head, you need to think about the hand, you need to think about the heart. Across the field of education, it is widely accepted that a learner, a student, become a finished product when he or she has acquired all those elements. We need to influence, we need to make changes to those elements: the hand, the head, and the heart. That is holistic education. That is transformative pedagogy. Unfortunately, our educational system focuses heavily on rote learning, knowledge acquisition, just one aspect, where students are compelled to memorize notes and theories for the purpose of passing exams. There is an urgent need to review the way we approach it. We need to educate for all the essentials, the 3 H's: the head, the hands, and the heart. Let me take the head: knowledge acquisition. Traditional approaches, no doubt, focused predominantly on the first H, the head. The emphasis on knowledge to pass exams means that learners easily forget. They forget what they have learned as time goes by, thus confirming the Chinese proverb, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. And what I do, I understand. This quote from Confucius: we have to do things to learn. That's what it means. Doing is better. Doing is a better way of learning. A recent study has found that out of a total of 97 subjects offered by WAEC, 39 are available to candidates in the Gambia. However, candidates in Ghana and Nigeria have a wide range of subjects than those in Gambia and Sierra Leone and Liberia. The study also found that subjects available to candidates in Gambia are mainly academic-oriented, while those in Ghana and Nigeria are broader in scope. Candidates in Ghana and Nigeria, therefore, have more opportunities to identify their interests in TVET very early. The Gambian system of secondary education offers comparatively limited opportunities in TVET subjects offered by the examination body. A comparative analysis shows that Ghanaian and Nigerian candidates have the opportunity to specialize earlier. For example, while candidates in Gambia have agricultural science as a general discipline, others have the option, Ghanaian candidates, for example, to choose general agriculture, but also forestry, fisheries, animal husbandry, crop husbandry, horticulture. That is just to give you an example. Now, yes, that's the slide I need. Now, if you look at that, that is what we offer at grade 9. So the TVET, the pre-vocational and technical subjects, is very, very limited in terms of the option for students. We think there is a need to look at that. And I think this study that I have looked at is advocating for a change in Gambian context. Now, the WAEC results for 2016-2018 shows that on average, next slide please. If you look at this slide, what it's telling us is students do better when they have to use their hands. If you look at that, it's telling us that on average, 78% of the candidates passed at credit level, grade 1 to 6, in physical education. 65.4% in woodwork, 64.9% in auto mechanics, as compared to economics, where you have 21.99%, agricultural science 26.2%, mathematics 7.55%, and English language 17.17%. It shows consistently that performance is comparatively low in subjects with theoretical component of assessment. This is probably because with the less theoretical subjects, they actually don't do a lot. If you do, you remember, according to the Confucius proverb. Now, that is to talk about the head. So where we have theoretical components too much, we lose the other elements in terms of the hands. We don't get students to be involved in practical work. I want to talk about the hand itself now. And that is the key to skills development. Africa is the next big skills market, but the youth need education opportunities. Providing training and job opportunities will improve the quality of life of the continent's citizens, significantly reducing poverty and illiteracy rates. But obstacles such as poor education systems stand in the way. Africa's youth, if properly trained and empowered, can contribute to Africa's rapid development and compete in the global marketplace. But let me just share with you, great English philosopher Herbert Spencer once said that the great aim of education is not knowledge, but action. And here, what I'm saying is we need to do something. It's not about the theoretical components. It's about the hands, practical work, so students can remember and have a better chance of doing better in exams. And learners have limited exposure to hand-on activities, unfortunately. That will not promote their psychomotor domain of learning. Hence, the second age I'm talking about, the hand, it is inadequately addressed in most African countries. Sadly, this has made our education system not responsive to all the critical skills that will require to address Africa's development programs. We face a situation like that in the Gambia, where it is very difficult to get craftsmen and technicians for certain type of jobs. In fact, the study that was conducted recently found that most of the jobs are going to our neighbors in the sub-region because the skill sets are not there. Nigeria, of course, has a wider range of subjects. And if you look at this table, what this table is telling you, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, this table is based on the international classification of subject areas, and it's generic education. Interestingly, we don't offer anything at grade 9, grade 12 level. We don't have any subject, whether it's grade 12 or grade 9. Arts and humanities, you can see we have a number of subjects there. So the first column there is telling you what all member countries are doing, and then the other one is Gambia and Sierra Leone only, Ghana only, Ghana and Liberia only, Nigeria only, Nigeria and Ghana only. So if we move on to the next slide, I want to show you what's happening now. In the next slide, you will see a key difference there. I can just summarize if it's not moving. In the next slide, if you take engineering, manufacturing, and construction, which is a key area for TVET, you will see that Nigeria alone has 17 subjects in those areas. 17 subjects in those areas. 9 subjects are offered to all member countries. Gambia and Sierra Leone has only 1 that is unique to them. Ghana has 6. But the key message there is Nigeria has moved on in terms of the diversity in subjects that are offered. I'm struggling with the slide, but let me just move on. Now, the table clearly shows that WAEC offers 97 subjects across member countries at grade 12. Out of these 37 subjects are available to all candidates in member countries. In addition to the subjects for all member states, the subjects offered in Ghana, 22%, Ghana only, Nigeria, 36%. Yes, that's the slide I wanted to show. If you look at engineering, manufacturing, and construction, which is the classification 7, you can see Nigeria offers a lot, 17 distinct disciplines in terms of what we call the TVET subjects. That is a big difference. Now, Ghana and Gambia and Sierra Leone, Ghana has 6, but Gambia and Sierra Leone, of course, they are all offering that 9, but that means that more work has to be done. And if you look at the next slide, for example, the next slide, please. The next slide is just giving you some examples of the sort of subject areas we are talking about that can make a huge difference to Africa's transformation agenda. You need all those skills to be able to deal with the challenges we face and to move our projects forward. Now let me talk about the heart. So we are saying in terms of the development of skills, the heart, more needs to be done in most of our countries in the sub-region. Nigeria has made significant progress, but let's look at the third H. The third H is about the heart. Now, I am suggesting this is the most important, and this is what explains why we are where we are. The heart, reinforcing our value system to do the right thing. It's a big problem. The third H, the heart, is often forgotten. It is the missing link in our quest for sustainable development. Let me turn to some great thinkers to remind us about the importance of the heart. The Dalai Lama wrote, "The heart of education is the education of the heart." That third H is important. Again, let me turn to another great philosopher, Aristotle. Educating your mind without educating your heart is no education at all. The above words amplify the importance of values as core objective of education. Enlightenment and empowerment. You need that heart to do the right thing. According to Aristotle, educating humans goes much beyond the cognitive aspect of learning, but to include values such as empathy, compassion, rationality. Values such as humanity, accountability, integrity, confidence, courage must be imparted as part of our education system. Education is not just confined to a defined set of knowledge in certain fields or simply having certificates, diplomas, and degrees. Educating the heart, therefore, means imparting moral values and molding our character. It makes a person complete, capable of decision-making, in tune with our value system, culture, morals, compassion, ethics. Ethics is taught very late. It's only when some of us become professionals. Ethics should be taught early on, because it's an important part of development. You can have a person that is highly knowledgeable and skilled, but still come up very short in integrity and character. Khushbu Pal cited the examples of cyber criminals and terrorists that are no doubt intellectually able. They can use their hands, that is why they are able to cause the disruption. But they lack value education. Khushbu put it, education without values creates very clever devils. That is a problem. Khushbu Pal also cited the examples of great leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, not just due to their intellect, but because of their ability to connect with people through empathy, compassion, respect for diversity, and human dignity, love, respect for law of land. He also reminded us of Hitler. Hitler was educated, but without the education of heart. He posed, no doubt, he proved dangerous for humanity. So, ladies and gentlemen, the third age we need to think about. We need to revisit our curriculum. We need to visit our teaching. We need to visit the learner. We need to reorientate our learners. The education of the heart leads to specific wisdom that offers the means to care, to feel, to respond with sympathy, empathy to fellow human beings. Let me give you a few examples or cases of how that is done. There is the Mind and Life Institute. The Mind and Life Institute was set up some 25 years ago, and it's focused on dialogue on the education of the heart. It offers an interesting insight from leading scientists, scholars, and educational practitioners. Education of the heart is designed to advance holistic educational models for nurturing compassion, ethical understanding among learners, educators, parents. The president of the Mind and Life Institute, Susan Boer-Wu, noted that in today's increasingly interconnected world, it is critical that young people develop the skills to be active citizens and bridge builders through social and emotional learning. That is what you get when you educate the heart. The whole system approach of education promotes emotional well-being of teachers, learners. So we are caring, nurturing. That's what I mean by TLC, tender, love, and care. We need to revisit that. And we only do that when we educate the heart. There's also another one I run through this quickly, called the Heart Program. The founder, Kamlesh Patel, believes that your heart is your laboratory. You feel that. Doing the right thing is important. The Heart Program is a training program to equip teachers with heartfulness practices, life skills, and knowledge for quality educational outcomes. A teacher's role is demanding, physically, mentally, and emotionally. However, if you train them to focus on pedagogy and content alone, we will miss something. So transformative pedagogy will develop their social, emotional, and cognitive abilities shown to be critical for leaders in today's world. There's also another program, I'll just run through that. The HELP program. It's called Helpfulness, Experience, and Life Potential Program, HELP. Again, the HEART program was targeting grades 1 to 9. The HELP program is targeting grade 10 to grade 12. Again, it focuses on life skills and values that will equip the teachers so that the teachers can transfer that to the learners, and we can have that captured in a curriculum. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by saying that there is a need for change, but action is required from all stakeholders. The curriculum. To begin with, our curriculum should be more responsive to our current and future needs as a society, but more importantly, to respond to the opportunities in the labor market, to prepare ourselves to address the challenges of the continent. Agenda 2063 can only become a reality if we revisit the way we teach, how we teach, what we teach. A critical element of this transformation is to ensure that our curriculum is grounded in African values, aspirations, as in the AU 2063, realities and development priorities. High-quality education must be complemented by TVET, that is anchored on Agenda 2063, to create opportunities. Then we talk about the need for action. The teachers. To teach with the heart is the essence that makes teaching a form of caring. We know that teachers are caring. Today, teaching and learning are now acknowledged as social and relational processes. Kaplan, an American scholar, criticized the loss of heart in our mainstream education system and argued for the heart-centered approach to be recovered and infused in teaching and learning. So we need to do that. Let me talk about the learners. It is within the power of all of us to help empower the students, the learners, the leaders of the future, so that they can create their own learning agenda to respond in a way that will reflect our values, our priorities in terms of development. As educators, we develop young people, but here are the two questions. How often do we teach the role of compassion? And how do we assess the level of compassion they have developed in the learning process? That's important for us. So as assessors, an examination body, I think it's important for us to rethink, how do we change that? To the parents and place of work. Educationists and sociologists have contended that learning occurs at 3 different levels. Apart from the school system, there's learning at the level of the family and place of work. At the family level, we all know that parents have a crucial role to play. It is an informal setting, but all of us know that. And we remember during the school days when the parents will tell us to return something that does not belong to us. That is the parents playing a crucial role in character molding. So we must look at that. Now, the place of work is also increasingly important because that's where the lifelong learning is taking place. So we need to look at that. How do we change that? How do we ensure that the place of work is where you can learn with the 3 H's? The head, the hand, and the heart. And the policy. Education policy is crucial in setting the direction. For example, in the Gambia here, the second education policy, 1976-86 it placed emphasis on technical education. So some technical secondary schools were established. The GTTI, the Gambia Technical Training Institute, was also established in 1983 to respond to that government policy initiative. The fifth education policy, 2016-2030, is anchored on access, quality, and relevance. So the relevance is important there. That's why we need to go back to our curriculum. We need to go back to what we're teaching. Is it responsive to Africa's development agenda? Government should prioritize education and invest significantly, and I know the Honorable Minister has been working very hard for that. We need to invest to improve the learning environment, teacher quality. We need to reorientate our learners. We need to address the curriculum in terms of mismatch between what we are producing and what is needed at all levels. The examination bodies. Exams should move away from heavy reliance on assessment based on cognitive aspects. The head. We need to integrate the other elements in a significant way so that the psychomotor, the hands-on, technical, practical skills, and the values and compassion, patriotism is also captured in that mix. To take the right decisions in society and to advance Africa's development, we need all 3 H's. We need it. To be able to assess, to help with our education, we need the 3 H's, the head, the hands, the heart. Sometimes, as individuals, we know that. We are faced with that challenge. What the heart is saying and what the head is saying. The heart represents emotional intelligence, and the head provides a logic. But there are times when the two will battle, and you have to decide. The heart is the laboratory. I'm saying Africa needs to look at how we change our value system. Values of life, such as patriotism, are directly from the heart. The education system should move away from the approach where the only aim, or the most important aim, is to get good grades and to secure a job in the market. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just conclude. I have a few things to say here. Transformative pedagogy relies on the 3 H's: the head, the hand, and the heart. It will create individuals that are well-rounded, intellectually sound, socially responsible, and economically productive to address Africa's development challenges. That's what we should do. But a fundamental threat to achieving the Africa we want, which is this big vision, 2063, we have, unfortunately, a stock of human capital in critical skills that is dangerously low. It is too low to have any impact. And I want to encourage all of us as players in the market to look at that. The origin of the problem, of course, lies in insufficient attention and focus being paid on STEM and TVET disciplines, which is manifested in low enrollment and inadequate preparation at the tertiary level. Clearly, more needs to be done to educate the hand for Africa's development. But the greater challenge is educating the heart, because we know that is what helps us in imparting moral values, holding character, and encouraging people to behave compassionately. In addition, the heart is often seen as a metaphor for education that is holistic. It will therefore create citizens and future leaders with knowledge necessary at all levels, from kindergarten to secondary schools and universities and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor to be among such accomplished individuals, scholars, eminent personalities, to be able to present my perspective before you all. Thank you for your kind attention. Good evening. Thank you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, no doubt that has been a very enlightening lecture. The heart of education is the education of the heart. You must educate your mind so as to educate your heart. If you remember, I drew our attention at the commencement of this lecture to the fact that past lectures had been stimulating and eye-opening. No doubt, today's lecture has also proved to be worthy of our time, well spent being here. Shall we put our hands again together for the guest lecturer? You will agree with me that this lecture has drawn our attention to the future we desire for Africa. It was focused on flagship initiatives and priority programs that will aid the development of our dear continent. But one suggestion was pertinent. Africa needs to go back to the drawing board and develop a transformative approach to issues that has plagued the continent, using the 3H, the head, the hand, and the heart. Permit me to invite the Chairman of Council, Professor Atoe Suman, for his closing remarks. Let's put our hands together for him.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the MC decided to use his own initiative to do a summary of what the chairman was supposed to do. And I take it in good faith, because he's done exactly what I would have done. Our distinguished lecturer, on behalf of council, we say a very big thank you to you. As you were speaking, what ran through my mind was, how are we going to take up this new challenge of ensuring the relevance of our education? If we remember, he introduced with the priorities, the agenda 2063, and posed the question, how are we responding to this? And how do we link up what our children are learning to what our priorities are? That has always been the problem, the missing link. And I think that as he was really speaking, my mind was more on the chief education officers as CGNs, because you are in charge of educational system. And this is the challenge that we should all be ready to take up. We have a very strong research department, and as we were saying this morning, we have a lot of data. And I think this offers us another opportunity of digesting what you've heard this past hour and see how this applies to us in our individual context. Once again, I thank you very much. I'll make one more comment and expand that maybe when we get to our business sessions. The Endowment Fund was established in March 1982. Right. If my mathematics is right, it's on 41 years now. The world has changed. Education has changed. And if we need to transform education, then we must change. And change requires money. Change requires money. We cannot use the same approach we have used in the last 41 years. If you look at the Endowment Fund, the objectives are 7. We have been able to focus on about 2 or 3. And the 2 are what we are doing now, and the Excellence Award. Yesterday, I browsed the Endowment Fund of some institutions, and some of the education institutions in the other side of the world have $49.8 billion as at December 2022. And those in the other side too had some 43.4 pounds, billion. Now, as an institution, if we look at where we are, our various governments are facing serious challenges with funding. What has happened to us in the last 3 years should make us all think that if this institution is to continue and stand for another 71 years, then we must be different. And I'm happy, Mr. Registrar, that under your leadership, in our new strategic plan, we have focused on about 2 pillars, which is intensification of our research and also increasing our internal generation fund. But the endowment fund, we have to have another look at it to see how we can relaunch this fund, change the objectives whilst maintaining the original sense of why it was established, and ensure that we can build up a fund to support the work of this great institution. Because what used to be an easy access to funding is now becoming very difficult. And that is the reality. That is the reality. With these comments, I'd like to thank all of you for your patience, and once again, to thank our distinguished lecturer for this insightful session that we have enjoyed together. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that wrap-up. Once again, let's put our hands together for Mr. Chairman, please. Thank you very much, sir. Please permit me to recognize the presence of the Vice Chairman and the Chief Government nominee from Nigeria, Yahya Jammeh. You're welcome, madam. She was not on seat when I introduced her the other time. Yes. Thank you, Ajay. Let's put our hands together for Ajay, the Vice Chairman of Council. Thank you, ma'am. Also, we have former head of the Gambia National Office in our midst this evening, Mr. E.M.S. Njai, former HNO, Banjul Office. Is he still around? Thank you, Mr. Njai. Mr. E.M.S. Njai. EMS is a very important document in WAEC. It is known as Examiner's Mark Sheet, but is EMS Njai. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much, sir. We also have the representative of Professor A.B.O. Oyediran of the Oyediran family, the former Vice Chancellor of University of Ibadan, Nigeria, who insisted the award for the best candidate in West Africa. Professor Oyediran is here represented by Mrs. Olukemi Aderemi. Madam, good evening, you are welcome. Good to see you. A warm regards to Prof when you get back to Nigeria. Thank you very much. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have commenced our descent into Banjul International Airport. And in final preparation for landing, please go back to your seat and ensure that your seatbelts are securely fastened as I invite the head of the Gambia National Office, Mr. Passamba Balde, to come and give vote of thanks. HNO, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. MC. Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology, holding the fort here tonight for the Minister for Basic and Secondary Education, Honorable Minister for Public Service and Policy Reform, Chairman of Council, members of the National Assembly here present, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, members of Council, Registrar to Council, former registrars to Council, former heads of National Office, members of the Board of Trustees of the WAEC Endowment Fund, distinguished friends of Council laureates, venerable religious leaders, directors of education, principals, examiners, distinguished invited guests, the police band, members of the press, staff, students, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me enormous pleasure to be given the opportunity to appreciate all those who participated in the 28th WAEC Endowment Fund lecture tonight. First of all, I wish to thank the Almighty Allah for making us see this day. We in Banjul are proud that the Council's first in-person forum since 2019 has taken place in our beautiful capital city. After 3 successive years of virtual meetings, the Council family is once again gathered here tonight under one roof, face to face, on the occasion of this now flagship event of the Council, the WAEC Endowment Fund Lecture, in its 28th edition. I wish to thank the Chairman of Council and the members of the Board of Trustees of the WAEC Endowment Fund for instituting this event, which has now become one of the most important features of the annual Council meetings, and for being here tonight to grace the occasion. As I do so, I can't forget to mention our own non-council member of the Board of Trustees for her role tonight and in the lead-up to the event. On behalf of the Council, I wish to thank our eminent lecturer tonight, first for the choice of the topic and for the excellent presentation that we have witnessed. Taking time off his busy schedule to represent the Minister of Basic and Secondary Education here. I wish to appreciate our Chief Government nominee to Council for his efforts in making this event tonight the success that it has been, and for his role in the arrangements. I can't fail to appreciate, though, his predecessor, with whom all the arrangements started. I also wish to thank the hardworking staff of the Banjul office, and especially the members of the local organizing committee for all the backstage work that went into making this event possible. I also wish to thank the staff of this magnificent venue for all the cooperation and services that made the event possible today. Finally, I also wish to thank you, distinguished guests, examiners, students, the police band, pressmen, directors of education, principals, and all of you here present for honoring us with your presence. The presence of each and every one of you has contributed to the success of the event tonight. I wish to thank you all. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, HNO, for thanking us. Once again, let's put our hands together for the HNO. The Honorable Minister, Mr. Chairman, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I just want to give a couple of announcements. Immediately after the closing prayer, we will request members of the high table to take that exit and go to Sea View just outside the VIP lounge where you will take a group photograph. Then all of us will now go to reception cocktail at the same venue, Sea View, just outside the VIP lounge. That is where we will hold a brief but very interesting reception for all of us. Also, we have the very first closed session we'll hold within these premises at the thematic room within the complex at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, by God's grace. Members of the LOC will be on hand to direct us to where the room is. And finally, the opening ceremony of the 71st Annual Council meeting will be holding here, right in this auditorium, by God's grace, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Guests are expected to be seated by 1:45 p.m. Thank you very much. Peter, please bring up the Reverend Father so that we can have the closing prayer.
I think we should all adopt this style of having 3 MCs and just letting one have the smallest part to play. And finally, it's my honor to invite my good friend, Father Moses Jammeh, parish priest of Blessed Sacrament Parish in Kanifing East Estate, to come and give the closing prayer. The tradition in the Gambia is to do both prayers at the beginning and then allow the clerics to disappear. But this is transformative praying. So you pray in Islam for the beginning, and then you close with the Christian prayer. And coincidentally, Pope Francis today marks 10 years as pontiff, and I'm sure Father Moses is very glad to have been asked to come and pray with us. So if I may invite you all to stand up. Father Moses, please come and end the session with a prayer.
Shall we be upstanding, please? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. God, our eternal and invisible Father, we thank and bless you for your presence and guidance throughout this lecture and bringing it to a successful completion. We thank you for the presence of all of us and those following this event via Zoom. Thank you for the life of Professor Herbert Robinson and the wisdom you have granted him. We thank you for his inspiring presentation and above all for challenging us to prioritize Tibet education in order to change the narrative of our underdevelopment as a continent. We pray that collectively we will be resolved to make a positive difference in our continent. We pray for joining masses for all of us here present, as you have brought us together safely to this place, that you, Father, would accompany us back to our various residences and in peace. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
This way.
The police band, please.